Hello, today's episode number 96 of the Professor Slots podcast discusses more on keeping good gambling records. Plus, in this episode, I'll be covering the current state of slot machine casino gambling in the great U.S. state of Ohio. Thank you for joining me for the Professor Slots podcast show. I'm John Friedel, and this is the podcast about slot machine casino gambling. It is where I provide knowledge, insights, and tools for helping you improve your slot machine gambling performance. In case you missed it, on my last episode, I went over more on identifying gambling goals from my weekly live Q&A session on YouTube. Further, I reviewed Northern Mariana Islands slot machine casino gambling in 2020. I hope you enjoyed listening to my last episode as much as I enjoyed making it for you. Remember to visit ProfessorSlots.com/subscribe to get my free report revealing the top 7 online resources for improving your gambling performance, including the one I've used as a top-tier slot machine casino gambler. Here's the audio recording of my latest live Q&A session. Hello, slots enthusiasts. How are you? It's great to hang out with you again for another Professor Slots podcast episode and live stream. Today, we're going to be diving into keeping good gambling records because these help with more than just income tax preparation. Knowing what you've won and lost at slots it's an advantage play. And how is it an advantage play? Well, that's coming up. But first, if you're with us during the live stream, make sure to say hello in the live chat. I've said I was here a little bit early and probably should try to do that going forward, just to say hello to folks. And so I've been into the live chat for a few minutes there. Say hello and let us know where you are at and where you play slots. I'll check in with a live chat in a few moments. And as usual, be sure to ask your slots related questions. That's the primary purpose of this show, is to see what questions you have. And we try to stick with something that comes out in the last week or so and try to stay on topic instead of just random questions. Anyway, if you've been here before, you know how this works. In any case, hi, my name is John Friedel. Welcome to Professor Slots, a channel that's all about mastering casino slots so you can win your way to success. If you've ever walked into a casino, looked around and wondered what's going on with slots, I can help. Thanks again for joining us today. Whether you're listening on the podcast, watching this video later as a recording, or here with us on the live stream at noon Eastern Time each Saturday, I'm glad you're all here. Today is Saturday, June 20th, 2020. I get stuck with saying 2020 sometimes. 2020, and this morning, as usual, I'm checking to see how many casinos have reopened. So this morning, the American Gaming Association's live casino tracker shows that 734 U.S. casinos have reopened, but 255 remain closed. We have 989 casinos in the country as they count them. Some of them are convenience stores. Some of them are resorts. So we have, in the last week since we talked last Saturday, we have another 215 casinos which have opened. So we're up from 63% of all casinos in the U.S. last Saturday to nearly 3/4. I think it's 74% or so. Nearly 3/4 of U.S. casinos have reopened as of this moment, as of this morning. So if you want updates yourself, the short link that I've created, the shortcut that I've created is ProfessorSlots.com/tracker. If I were to give you the AGAs, I'd still be speaking /this and period that for quite some time. So I've given you a shortcut that makes it convenient. Doesn't go to my website. It goes directly to AGA's tracker, ProfessorSlots.com/tracker for your convenience. When I looked at the casino tracker this morning, I saw they'd added a graph beneath the map of the U.S., which is primarily where I've been looking. Has anyone else seen that before? It's a plot showing the number of open casinos every day since March 1st, beginning of the month when we started seeing the closings. The red line is for tribal casinos, and the blue line is for commercial casinos. It's not really a blue, it's a light blue. You might even say it's a teal. It's interesting how tribal casinos closed last and opened first. Not all of them, just more so than commercial casinos. Most recently, they're like the last time they updated it last night for that plot, it shows an equal number of open tribal and commercial casinos, 359 each. I thought that was interesting that we're even. Normally there's 75 or so more casinos, more tribal casinos than commercial casinos, but it does depend on how they count a casino. They including the card rooms in California, which don't have machines, or it's hard to say. I think they do, because it's 1,989 is a little higher number than I would get if we just talk about slots, even if we include Class 2 machines. Okay, so as I've also mentioned in the past, join your local slots community on Facebook to get the latest on casino reopenings in your area. Share your casino trip reports and see what your local slots enthusiasts are sharing themselves. It gets pretty active out there. So I've set up these private Facebook communities for you, and you can find your state or states wherever you play slots, wherever you want to play slots, even if it's Las Vegas, Nevada, where you visit once a year or something. Go to professorslots.com/FB. And that'll show you a list of every state. If you're on my email list, which is something that's at the top of professorslots.com, it's the green button. You can get on my newsletter, and every Saturday I send out what we're doing today, what we did in the last week, and in case you missed anything. And on that is also the state list, so you can join those. It's great to check in with your fellow, like yesterday. Was it yesterday? Chip, I almost called you by your real name. Yesterday, Ohio casinos opened, and we're all sort of chatting. It's less of a mystery now than it was before the Oklahoma casinos opened, right? That was sort of like, I wonder how that's going to go. Is it going to be 1 million people in the parking lot, or what? So I think based on what I've learned, and for other reasons having to do with my day job and layoffs, that might happen. I think I'll wait another week before I go, just to let the crowds die down and let the casino sort of level out and understand what they're doing a little bit better. And then I'll check in and let my Ohio slots enthusiasts Facebook community know, and let you guys know as well. So let's check in with the live chat to say hello and maybe answer a few quick questions before getting into today's topic. I put that special section in my intro for Chip, because sometimes he likes to ask the hard question right up front. And because I've been terrible about that, I try to remind myself not to skip past that. So Chip says, morning slot buds. Thing to remember about Chip is he gives us nicknames. Jovial Jackpotters, right? No, Jovial Jackpot. JJJ, I forget what the third J was. He gives us cute names. But Chip's in Ohio, and he is first day back to the casinos. He reports that on his first day back, using my methods, he held his losses to a minimum. But then he also had 3 above average wins, under 1,000, and he had $900 in winnings. Congratulations. I'm happy for you. Hopefully I'll have something similar to that you go to a different Ohio casino than I do. And hopefully I'll see something like that when I get out. Mostly I'm just going to be, as I mentioned last time, looking around and trying to report to the rest of Ohio who's thinking about going, what it's kind of like there. Playing is not my high priority unless it's a new way to win. Okay. Lois and Dave are here from Ontario. Let's all be, sensitive to their having no slots activity yet, and not gloat too much that ours opened, in Ohio yesterday. Sorry, family, friends. I hope I'm not teasing too hard. Right. So Chuck says, congratulations to Chip. he says, I was not as successful with a recent short visit to Maristar St. Charles, Missouri. He left down $100 after 1 hour, one poorly timed hour. Chuck and I have been doing a lot of talking about using my methods. And I commented back when I saw that and said, you're only down 100 after playing for an hour. People would count that as success, but keep those standards high, please. And Chip responded back with, holding it to 100 is not bad. Right. Don't mean to go line by line here, but I thought that was nice to see that. And lots of people telling me my audio is good. Great. I would like to be heard. Denise is here. She's in Texas, plays in Oklahoma. David is here from Shawnee, Oklahoma. He went to the Grand Casino. That's the actual name of the casino for those who don't know. In Shawnee with no luck. Oh, it's 2-level, but not too many people. Okay. Hope that switches up for you. Remember, it's the casino. I mean, we can be, not using like good money management skills and lose money that way. But a lot of, what we talk about is observations to see what the casino is doing. The casino wants you to think that, well, if you were lucky. And it's just like, well, only if you had consistent business practices that we could observe and identify and take advantage of, right? So thank you, David. And some internal conversations. Chip says, John, I have started to put in my date and time. I arrived at the casino and how much I brought in cash. And so this is a question about today's topic. And then how much I brought in cash. I then write down time left and game when leaving. Am I missing anything? I'll show you some pictures or show you where to find some pictures and we'll talk about that. Today's topic, well, we'll get into it. It's very clear. I would say that you've got everything. If let's see, as long as you wrote down the casino, there's only 3 things the IRS wants you to have. I mean, they say you can do a bunch of other things, but the 3 primary things is date, casino, or location. It might be a convenience store, so I probably shouldn't say casino, but location. And maybe you're buying $1,000 worth of lottery tickets. You can record those things: date, location, and how much. Right? How much did you win or lose total? They prefer how much did you take and how much did you leave with. They don't want the difference. See, it gets complicated fast. Too complicated, too fast. Date, location, amount. And we'll get into that. So you've got everything, but then there's a whole host of things that you can do that would help improve your gambling performance. So if you want to read my article that I'm talking about today, keeping good record keeping for tax preparation and more. Really, we're talking about the and more stuff. Okay, and I'll get into this. I'll cover what's in there and let you know where you can find more information. But the and more stuff is starting to get very interesting. Which machine? Even in this live chat, we had somebody say, "So, what's your favorite machine? What machine did you play a year ago? What machine now?" And if you keep track, record all that, look back after a year, and say, I really should stop playing that one machine because I always lose on it. But this other machine, I've been playing maybe half as much. I made twice as much money. Maybe that's the one I need to switch to. When you have records, you can look at these trends, and it's less, objective, or less subjective, and more objective. It's more, data says right there. And so this is all about what today's topic is, to start looking at, keeping data. It makes it sound, like it's tough. It's addition, right? Hopefully more addition than subtraction, right? Math jokes. Steve's here from Wisconsin. And Larry is in the UK. No, we were just getting warmed up here, Larry. Need to get going, though. Catherine is here from Oregon. So rather than talking about what I'm going to be talking about in a moment, let's talk about it. Okay, so that was excellent. I'll keep an eye on the chat and make sure there's nothing too crazy going on. But I'll check in a moment again. Again, today's topic is more on keeping good gambling records. As with earlier live streams, my intent here isn't to present this topic for the first time, but rather to review an existing article or video. In this case, I only have the article, in terms of what went undiscussed, or how to apply it to new and interesting ways. So this is my opportunity to ask you if you'd be interested in more on this topic and more on that sort of variant and offshoot. And it's also a chance for you to jump up and say yes. And so I'm looking for feedback and ideas and to help you. So I'll ask you this question. Have you ever won a hand pay? A hand pay jackpot. This is the one which is $1,200 or more, right? There are other kind of hand pays out there, and I won't get distracted. If you've won $1,200 or more, and you're in the U.S., and you're a U.S. citizen, that means you got a W-2G tax form for that hand pay from the U.S. Internal Revenue Service. W-2G tax form. And the casino will fill out paperwork, which normally the casinos that I've been to and gotten hand pays at, what a strange statement. Yeah, multiple casinos I've been to get a hand pay. But you can only sometimes you only know what they do unless you live through it. Right. So I was surprised to find it was at Foxwoods, maybe because it was a tribal casino. They gave me the W-2G right then, and printed it themselves and whatnot. In Ohio at commercial casinos, and maybe that's the difference. I haven't been to every type of casino in every state to see what, a casino does, but they do follow this is federal. So the tax form can be given to you at the time of the jackpot, or it can be sent to you later to your home address. And I've had it happen both ways. But for my usual casinos that I spend the most amount of time at, where I've gotten the most number of taxable jackpots, it was mailed to me later. Right. So this is, I'm not saying that, this W-2G form, which is for the U.S. Internal Revenue Service, or the IRS, I'm not saying you pay taxes. I'm saying you got the form. Okay. This is you get the form when you won $1,200 or more. So let's talk a little bit about taxes, right? I want to briefly cover what the article is about. And the article is in the show notes, in the description for this video, as well as some of the other links I'm going to talk about. And that's where you can find those. I've stopped putting them in the live chat because it slows down the conversation. And there's technical difficulties besides. Let's talk briefly about what's in the article having to do with how does the income tax deduction work? And so if it's $1,200 or more, there is an automatic income tax withdrawal from your winnings at the time of the win for state and local, and federal is optional. Okay, so let's just talk about federal. Federal is optional. You can say, no, I don't want any federal taxes taken out. Okay. Or you could ask for federal taxes taken out. But now state income taxes depends on the state. Like Nevada doesn't have them. Income taxes on gambling in Nevada. So there is no withdrawal, no automatic withdrawal, because they just don't have them. Now, there's a third income tax, and this one is automatic, but it depends if your casino has it. This is not your residency. It is your casino's residency. right? In Cincinnati, downtown is, what's the current name of it? It was Jack's Cincinnati. Before that, it was Horseshoe Cincinnati. And now it's, is it Hard Rock? I don't think they put the signs up yet. Hard Rock Cincinnati. They've changed ownership, but it takes 6 months to get the signs and whatnot. So they are downtown. And they have city taxes. I happen to know because I have more than proof of that. Many, many taxable jackpots from that casino. But there's one just outside of town at the racetrack along the Ohio River, a little bit to the east, where they're outside of city limits and for Cincinnati, but they're also not inside city limits for their local city. So there is no local income taxes at that casino. And so your casino, is it in town? And if it's in town, does it have local taxes? And if there are local taxes, is it 2%, 1.2%, 2.1%? You might be able to look it up if you're better than I am at taxes. But, if you get a hand pay, then you can see how much they pulled out. And so we have these three taxes. And what what I have found is when I win again is to, it's because I got a bigger tax refund. The first one was, and I write about this in the book, the first one was $5,000 more. And I only made like $13,000, $12,000 a year. So, at basically 50% of my yearly income as a graduate student. Leaves a positive impression. And state income taxes depend on the state you live in. No. Depends on the state you won in, not the state you live in, unless it's the same. Local income taxes are the same. Whether or not local taxes are state or local taxes are withdrawn at the time of the win depends on the location of the casino and not your residence. So state and local income taxes are automatically withdrawn at the time of the win. If they exist at your casino, this withdrawal of state and local taxes is not optional, assuming there is any. However, paying federal income taxes at the time of the win is optional, but that's only at the time of the win. It's not never. So the reason I asked a moment ago if you ever won a taxable jackpot was because you've been through this. Okay, whether you wanted to be through it or not, many of you have not yet won a taxable jackpot. So how would you know about this unless you saw this live Q&A session? And I want to repeat that. Many of you have not yet won a taxable jackpot. That's right. Yet. Yet is because my job is to help you improve your slot machine gambling performance. That means if I'm successful enough that you'll start having the joy of taxable jackpots. And all of us who have won a taxable jackpot had a crash course in the taxes. I've met slots enthusiasts who's winning. There's a couple of things to talk about here. I've met slots enthusiasts whose winning slot strategy is to not win a taxable jackpot. They are actively working to not win a taxable jackpot. They play high limit slot machines for low credits, 1 or 2 credits. They look at the pay table and determine where the $1,200 jackpots start under how many credits. Column with 1 credit, 2 credits, 3 credits, and they make a choice on how many credits they bet on that $1 machine or $5 machine. These are high limit machines, shall we say. And a significant number of those jackpots available under that credit heading would be under $1,200. So they play that much. Now, technically, this is a winning slot strategy. Okay. Technically, it's illegal. Totally illegal. But it's, you have to get caught. And a lot of people, in one form or another, don't pay taxes on their winnings. But when you have a W-2G tax form, with your social security number on it, and you get a copy and another copy sent to the IRS, that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about people deliberately trying to win less than $1,200 jackpot, $1,000, $800. And then, they call it a day, and we'll talk a little bit about that. So high limit machines usually have top jackpots well over $1,200, no matter how many credits you bet. But maybe the second to top or the third to top jackpot isn't over $1,200. From this gentleman's point of view, and this was in Horseshoe, Cleveland at the time. I don't think it's still a horseshoe. Is it, Chip, is it still a horseshoe in Cleveland? Or did they get bought out too? I don't remember any change from Horseshoe. In any case, in that high limit room, I got to chatting with him maybe about a year and a half ago, two now. And he told me straight up, he'd only get a taxable jackpot playing a 1 credit, $5 denomination slot machine if he was, unlucky. And given how much this slots enthusiast told me he was playing, he'd already avoided hundreds of W2Gs over several years. And apparently, he personally made sure he didn't pay those taxes. Like I said, unfortunately, this winning slot strategy, for it to work, he would have had to not report his gambling winnings. Frankly, that's illegal. But he's mostly unlikely to get caught. I'd say I said mostly because any large bank deposits he makes regularly, whether he knew it or not, could end up getting him audited by the IRS. In fact, banks ask where cash comes from. If you make a single cash deposit, which is $10,000 or more, believe you me, done it many times. Well, many, handful of times, 2 handfuls of times, and 7 handfuls of times. I have the paper bands to prove it. In any case, all banks, when that happens, all banks must file a federal report to the fraud division of the IRS for each such deposit at the time of the deposit. To complete the deposit, they have to do that. So they send it in. Basically, more or less, this process is how the IRS looks for money laundering activities of organized crime or drug dealers. So this gentleman winning thousands of dollars, it's not like he can't get caught. I suppose if you put all your cash in your, mattress or a hole in the ground or a coffee can. So I don't recommend this slot strategy. It's illegal and fraught with personal risk, yet people do it to a greater or lesser degree. But let's get back to the joy of your very first taxable jackpot. I've sat next to other slots players, slots enthusiasts, when they've won their first hand pay. One time, a player hit the voucher out button. They won, hit the voucher out button, stood up, started to leave while grabbing for the voucher ticket, which she was surprised to see wasn't being printed. The slot machine had locked up, and that's what you do when you have a hand pay, it locks up. For photos of what that looks like, there's plenty of them on, for instance, Oklahoma Slots Community or on Facebook, or the Washington one where a lot of people are showing that. Actually, a lot of the groups are showing their wins, and this shows the call attendant sign and, the size of the jackpot. Anyway, the slot machine locked up, and that's what it does, and even says so on the screen. But in the hurry of this slots enthusiast, she hadn't noticed that. So I have mentioned, I've mentioned this story in the past. That's because goes something along the lines of that I was helpfully explaining to her that the slot attendant was on her way, automatically notified, on her way, and that she'd be along shortly to help her pay her taxes. And while I walked into that one, she's like, taxes? And right about then, the slot attendant walked up and took care of that winner. Not to change today's topic, but please remember to tip your slot attendant whenever appropriate, perhaps with something from your hand pay winnings, not just for all the aggravation that they have to put up with by having that job. If you only get hundreds from your hand pay, which is likely to happen, $1,200. No, if there's no taxes, it's, $1,200 bills. You can ask for her to change it. She has a pocket full of cash, or a belt pouch full of cash, and give her a 20 or whatever you decide. But I seriously think that for the aggravation, they should be tipped. So let's say you've won your first hand pay jackpot. Woohoo, great. Enjoy that. That first one is usually the memory of a lifetime. It certainly was for me 16 years ago on April 3rd at 10 a.m. on a sunny Saturday when I won a $1,250 taxable jackpot, my first. I barely remember my second one about 50 minutes later for $4,000. It's just a little memory. I hope you appreciate my sense of humor. I'm trying so hard. You win. The machine locks up. A slot attendant shows up with a belt pouch full of cash and a pad of paper. And begins to ask you questions. Do you have a government issued ID? Do you want to pay federal income taxes? Now, they'll say now. I've written this up. This whole process up, who does what the machine does, what the attendant does, what the player needs to do. It's all written up in chapter 3 of my book, as well as an article called Keeping Gambling Records for Tax Preparation and More. Actually, is that where I put it? I believe so, yes. And you can find that if you go to professorslots.com/keep. KEEP. From here, let's skip ahead. Let's say that casino is where you had to, well, actually, I want to check in to make sure the chat's going okay. Jump in. So I think we ended with Catherine in Oregon. Chip is answering someone else's question. Chuck is responding. Chip is saying, John, last time I was in Cleveland, it was Jack's. That's right. Jack Cleveland. That's right. But it may have changed hands since then. I think it might have, but I'm not sure if it's going to be a Hard Rock or not. It might still be a Jack's. Jack's is a company from the Detroit area, and they owned Cincinnati for, 2015. 2015. I saw the name change on my W-2G and no public reports. There might have been some report somewhere in a finance document somewhere saying ownership change, but it wasn't announced anywhere that I saw. And it was just right there on my W-2G. And I was like, oh, that's not information you can easily find. All you need to do is get a taxable jackpot. You know a lot about what's going on at the casino. But then they went to another company, the Jacks, and 6 months to 9 months later, the signs went up. Then that stayed in place until, was it April last year, April 2019. I think they were approved. No, the purchase took place, but they had to wait for approval, and then the approval came through the Gaming Commission towards the end of the year. This may not seem like it matters, but if somebody buys your casino, all this starts to matter. And I don't know that I've ever heard of a tribal casino being bought, though. Changing, not a change of who owns it, the operator, but a change of, the owner, no change in the owner, but a change in the operator. Let's see. Right, Chip, we'll talk about some of the additional entries that you can put on some of these choices. And, the IRS recommends 3, 4, really 2 amounts, date in the casino, how much you walked in with, how much you walked out with, on what day, where. And that can apply to, going to a convenience store and buying a lottery. It could, it could apply to, well, anybody know history? Al Capone, right? The crime he was eventually committed for, arrested for and convicted for, was tax evasion, right? And despite the murders and all the other stuff, the organized crime and all the other stuff that was going on, it was tax evasion. So, right. Uh, let's see here. Right. So skipping ahead, let's say your casino has to pay state and local income taxes on taxable jackpots. They are situated in such a place where that happens. Let's say you won a jackpot for precisely $3,000. If state and local income taxes were 6% combined, which is what I was having in Cincinnati. It doesn't necessarily mean it's yours. It was a combination of state and local, about 2.1, I think it was, for state, and the remainder of 2.1 for local, and the remainder of the 6% was for state. But combined, and that's usually what you see at first until you start digging into things on your tax return. At first, it just looks like combined 6%. That's $180 out of a $3,000 jackpot. If you choose to pay federal taxes, when they ask you, the first question is, do you want to pay federal taxes? And if you say yes, they would say, how much, what percentage do you want to pay federal income taxes? And let's say you choose 25%. That's a common, shall we say, for those who do it, and maybe default almost, but you can change it. That is $750 out of a $3,000 jackpot. So now we're up to almost $1,000 in having paid taxes at the federal level, the state level, and the local level. And wouldn't you like to have that back? $1,000, right? One way is to choose to not pay the 25% federal taxes. So you only have the $180 that you paid for state and local, but still, $180 is $180, right? So why wouldn't you look into getting that back? And either way, $1,000 or $180, it's money just lying there. And what do you need to do? You need to do something for a solid year. You can do it for less, but keep on qualifying myself here. Details. You need to keep a record of your gambling. How much, where, what, when, where, how much did you walk in with? How much did you walk out with? Okay. And then when it comes time for tax preparation, you give that to your tax preparation man, or you use the software yourself. You use that log, that written record, digital or, physical, that record. You can't, in first week of April, the following year, you can't use your memory to say, well, I'm pretty sure right about this time I went to that casino and I spent, I think, this much and I thought I won this much. No, you need a log. Okay. And IRS says you got to have a log. And then you can take those amounts, add them up as appropriate, and put them in. You don't have to enter every session, but you need to drop that log into your long-term records for your tax returns, your tax records. But you do need to do things like add up totals for the year. And then, of course, if you have any W-2Gs, those have to be entered as well. But let's talk about how to get back as much as possible. I would hope that whether it's $180 or, nearly $1,000, that's just one taxable jackpot of $3,000. Okay. I had what? $190,000? 90 jackpots and 90 taxable jackpots in 9 months. Okay. It wasn't $90,000 that I won. It was a whole heck of a lot more than that. Not including bankroll cycling, which we're not going to get into, I think, today. But, that was 30 times this. So if I had paid 25% on federal taxes, that's $30,000 to get back in as a refund. I choose not to do that. For me, I will maybe do that on a couple of them. If I'm winning a lot of hand pays, I might do it on a couple of them, because sometimes I get a little bit worried about having a big tax bill necessarily. But if I pay a couple of $1,000 on early jackpots for the year, I'm sort of got a buffer to work with, and I'll get it back. But there's no reason from the way that I gamble, how much I gamble, types of gambling that I do, that I would do much more than that. Many other slots players that I've talked to don't pay any federal, they like to come back and say, well, it's just going to be a wash. That requires, I mean, if you hear that sort of thing as you get educated on, what, say you win at HandPay, you get educated fast, or you mess up fast. And sometimes people talk about stuff they don't really understand, and they'll say, oh, you don't have to do that. It's going to be a wash. Forgetting to mention that they write down their trip, into a log and keep that record so that they make sure that they get that money back, or that they don't have to pay that money, because you can have gambling deductions up to your winnings. And isn't that the strangest thing you ever heard? How many years did I go before my first, the first thing I learned, the many things that I learned with my first taxable jackpot was record keeping. Okay. Second thing was, why didn't everybody that was in the casino tell me about gambling records? Because they're not winners. If you don't win anything, I mean, you win $100 and, you go in, you have $20, you play the $20 and you win $100, and then you have $100 and then you play it till it's zero and then you go, you're not winning. Change those numbers just to $10,000, whatever. You are not winning. If you don't have a HandPay, if you don't have a $1,000 win that you were recording and you got 20 of them and you only came into the casino with $500, you aren't winning. And you can only deduct gambling deductions up to your winnings. And if your winnings are zero, then there are none. And that's not you. I mean, maybe it's you now, but if I have anything to say about it, you're going to have to pay taxes. Ooh, that came out poorly. I want you to have winnings, and I want you to know what happens when you start winning. And so I want all of you to be winners. And to do that, I'd like to help you have gambling records, so you can win again. Right. So take a look at the article, professorslots.com/keep. I haven't yet made a video of it. It's on my list. I think it's actually next on my list. I might have recorded that one. It's been an interesting time lately, but that's why it's there, for you to read that. I'm not trying to cover it in detail here. I'm just trying to explain why you should read it, what you get from it, and some of the other additional uses besides keeping the IRS happy. So also, I'll say this right now. Remember to look closely at the section on avoiding the financial pitfall of local income taxes. At a high level, they don't accept gambling deductions. And if you take a moment to think about what that means, you might want to take a look at that. It's income tax surprises are to be avoided. Okay. Most of what I've already explained is something you should talk over with your income tax professional. Please understand that I am not an income tax professional. So anything I say on or about income taxes needs to be verified by someone who is. For instance, if I know anything about taxes, maybe I know state taxes for Ohio a little, but not Oklahoma. So I am not your expert on tax. I'm not your your professional tax preparation expert. You need to have somebody local, at the very least. Otherwise, these concepts that we're talking about here, I have personal experience at them, and I've also gone over helpful resources on the IRS website. Now, I did this with you, those of you who have been here for a while, either on the live stream, YouTube, or even on the podcast episode, know this. All right. I even had some videos on some screen captures on the video. I did this previously, January 4th, 2020. Okay. If you are currently, if you are listening, yes, you are listening on the podcast, I went over it in podcast episode number 72. On YouTube, it was January 4th. So I put, there's a link for it. I think I should be able to just drop this into the live chat, and I'll make sure that it's available later for if the people on the podcast wants to see the video, then I'll make sure that's in their show notes, and I'll also drop it in the description for this video, so you have that and you can jump back to it. Maybe might be a better way to put it at the end of this video, so it automatically starts in the next one. Efficiency. What we need to talk about instead of just reviewing the article that you can read in the prior video that you can watch or listen to, it's more than what's in that post video or podcast episode. We need to talk about how to take good gambling records. And Greg, Chip, we're narrowing in on some of your questions earlier. So we need to talk about taking not just gambling records, but good gambling records, and not just gambling records for the IRS, but gambling records for us to help us win more. So the kind that will help us improve our gambling performance, the kind that would help us win more and more often. Remember, it's a cumulative effect. You find the best casino, you find the best candidate slot machines, you find the best money management tools. You make choices, all of which improve your odds slightly, and together it's significant. And the whole process from start to end. And so gambling records is part of this to help you be even better. So I recommend, I was lucky when I won my first taxable jackpot because I kept gambling records. It wasn't for tax preparation because I didn't yet even know about that, but rather so I could understand what was happening while gambling. I still do that, and that's what I recommend that you do, very much so. In my book, I recommend 4 ways to keep gambling records. If you have the ebook or the softcover, then look at the tables in Chapter 10. Owners of my new audio version of Learning to Win, link in the description and show notes, that came out only a week ago and it's doing great. That doesn't have photos, right? So what I did was I created a page on my website called professorslots.com/forms, FORMS. If you go to the bottom of that page, professorslots.com/forms, you'll find 4, there's every image in the book is on that page, but the last 4 images are 4 tables right at the bottom. Table 10-2 is the minimum records. Do I need to drop that? I can't this is one of the links I can't put into the notes, but it should be fairly straightforward. professorslots.com/forms. Table 10-2, 4th from the bottom, is the minimum records the IRS recommends you keep for income tax preparation purposes. This is the date, location, amount spent, and the amount of take-home. Also included is an entry for a complimentary gift that you might have got. Description, electric skillet, right? And what it would have cost if you had bought it yourself, right? Fair market value, I believe it's called. So that would be, a gift that had monetary value, and that's taxable. I know we don't want to pay taxes, but it turns out to be to your advantage. You can get all that back and, pay taxes. I won't get into being a citizen of the great United States and our obligations. Get away from patriotism necessarily. So also included is this complimentary gift column. But if in the table 10-2, if you go to the one below it, 10-3, and 4 and 5, the last 3, these tables have those basic entries, like the time of the win, but it also has more, like the time of the win and which machine it was won on and how much income taxes were paid. It also mentioned complimentary gifts, but I think this is where Chip had his question, not the complimentary gifts, but there are, if you've read my book, if you've read enough of my articles, I have winning slot strategies, and some of them involve, when were you at the casino? Was it a holiday? Was it after a holiday? what time was it? Was it in the morning or if you just put the date in, you don't know if it was, unless you remember, you don't know if it was 5 o'clock in the morning or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And if you want a taxable jackpot, some of my winning slots strategies, which depend on casinos' business practices, depend on having that knowledge a week later. So I have a place to record it. If you are following my slot strategies and you want to do more than the minimum requirement from the IRS. So I have tables that include places to put in information you need to try this winning strategy or that winning strategy. Okay. So that's what some of the other tables start to include. Now, complementary gifts. Complementary gifts get complicated fast. All right. If you get an electric skillet, all right, you write in an electric skillet on the name and you figure out how much it would cost if you were to buy it on Amazon. Because you got a new one, you didn't get a used one, so don't go to eBay. But you find out the cost of the value, and if you spend a lot of money on gambling, you get all that back. All right, you get all that back, and it can be substantial. So the reason why comps can get complicated is, what if they give you a 4-day, 3-night trip to Las Vegas? All right. Paid for your hotel room, paid for the airfare. What about that show you went to? What about that meal that was comped? What about the other meal and the other meal and the other meal and the other meal and the other meal? How many meals? 3 meals a day, 4 days, right? So you get to have like more than you can put into a single line entry for a casino. And so I created a separate table with the date, location, and actually just the date and the date and the comp and the cost. You're on a cruise and you do all these things and et cetera, and the casino is paying for this, that, and the other thing because it's part of the comp. Then you need to keep track of it, and I want to make it easy. So sometimes you don't put the last two comps, the comp name and the comp amount, at the end of a table with all the other information. Sometimes you have a separate table because, how do I put down hug from a temptation? It's just not that one of the temptations hugged me. I think but I did meet them at one of them, and it was all sort of, how do you capture this stuff? And you want to capture this stuff. Some of it's going to matter because things like comments on, we were talking earlier today, I don't know if they're on the live stream. We were talking earlier today on the Oklahoma site. I think it was Professor Slots Enthusiast. We were talking about a machine that sort of, it gives an idea, gives an indication, it starts spinning a little faster, gives an idea that a bonus round is going to come up. And what a great thing to note, on your records. So that you can remember this, that, and the other thing. And, this is how you remember, go back to that one, and, watch for this again, and other notes. Your very own for yourself casino trip report. But again, these tables are the basics, and a bit more. And we've talked about comps. But now we get into, a little more complicated, an opportunity. Now we get into the opportunity. Those tables that I show on my webpage and those tables that are in the book, except for the PDF that I sell on my website, that does have full page tables in it, but it's not an Excel spreadsheet. It's just a table. And you can't, run it. You can't, it's not a spreadsheet. It's not Microsoft Excel. It's not Google Docs spreadsheets. It's, the book PDF has stuff you can print out if you even have a printer, that would allow you to then, make a bunch of photocopies of it, and there's your record. But I think I can do better than that. I want to make it easy for you. So how about, what do you think? I haven't done this. I'm thinking about doing it. What do you think about my doing more than that? Would you like a Professor Slots booklet with tables to fill out, with blank tables so you can record some of this information? Maybe a physical booklet, something you carry around something like my Learning to Win book, where it's, put your notes in it. You can carry it around the casino, or, leave it in your car and you can write down what happened in that day. Something a little bit, would you like a booklet? Would you like an electronic spreadsheet that you can download from my website? All this would be a nominal cost, but I'm wondering. So for those of you here in the live chat, let me know if you think this is a good idea. And if so, I'll get cracking on making these available well before next year, well before, say, November, Christmas gifts, right? So I'll, if you think that's a fine idea, if you think that's a good idea, and maybe even if you don't, I'm thinking that probably would help people. They may need to learn to use them, may need to get used to the idea, but I can't see that being bad at all. So, it would be kind of a log, put monthly calendars in the first few pages in the front, maybe put a couple of my annual casino assessment sheets checklist towards the back. And so you can, have the form to fill out once a year. And there's your tax preparation records, big 2021 on the cover, Professor Slott's logo in the back, and leave plenty of room for notes, maybe even kind of like a journal. Now I've seen some of these that are very nice, not for casino trip reports, but at the local bookstore. And I don't think I'm going to be doing the leather cover or with the cord wrapped around it. I think I got stuff around here. I don't know that I'll get that fancy the first year, but let's switch over to the live chat and see what they think about this idea. So, Jan is here. Jan is early for our 1:00 show, which we canceled 2 weeks ago and moved to noon. And she is, I'm sorry that you missed most of it, Jan. There is I think a little bell. And I'll start Saturdays. It'll be available a few minutes after we're done here. I'll start Saturdays, and you can click the little bell on the link, and it will, when you go there, and it won't, of course, start for a week, but it'll send you a reminder, and that's what YouTube offers. So Jan says, on her casino log, I added a column that said net win loss. It makes it easier for me to know where I'm at. Yes, that's a great accounting principle where you add a column and so you don't have to wait to the end of the year to total it up, but you have like a running total, a cumulative total. That's a fine idea. There's things like an Excel spreadsheet, it just automatically recalculates, but for the hand booklet, there's best practice in having another column for win-loss. Yeah, thank you. That's a fine idea. Don't want to take too much time here, but it's such a fine idea. It's going to get written down. Okay. So Chip says it would be nice for you to have an app that we could buy for our smartphone. I do. I hardly use it. It's only for the podcasts. If you go into Android App Store and type in Professor Slots, you can download it. It's free. Also, if you're iPhone, Professor Slots on the Apple Store, and you can download it. I am only using it currently for podcast episodes, but I am allowed to put in documents, right? But that doesn't quite get you where you need. I need to make like do you have Excel spreadsheet? Do you have Excel on your phone? And would it be big enough window to even, I got to figure out what's practical. There are some options there for electronic. And I think I'm much further along in the booklet idea. Gambling diary. I don't want to put all the bells and whistles into it, but having a section for notes, I found that incredibly helpful to win more. another extra half page, and that makes it a journal. And this sort of, I count jackpots, and I count amounts, and I count win-loss, and I count this and the other thing. And I did that for a year, and it wasn't enough. I was trying to figure stuff out, and I was like, well, some of my nebulous thoughts about, seems like there's a taste every 5 pull, it became something later, and I just needed to sort of capture what I was seeing. So later on I could say, I've seen that like 10 times. That's something. I should look into that. So notes and diary and all that should be part of it. But I have to figure out how to do that physically, and I have to figure out how to do that electronically. And that works on an iPhone about this big, I guess. So I will get this together for you guys. It looks like we got a yes. And people were saying, love the idea. Let's see, Larry, I'm in the U.S. and you can get apps for that that sort out your taxes and expenses, but our taxes are completely different from the U.S. Yes, absolutely. I've got Canadian friends on the phone, or on the show, and that's very different. I am not a tax professional. I can't help you make sure that you have your tax preparation set up, particularly if it's not for the United States. It's the only one I know myself. And so please confirm what you need. But if I want to, but I can help you win. And some of the things I think you should capture to help you win, because it works for me, and works to others who I've been sharing with, then that's the sort of booklet. And the first year will cover whatever I can. And it covers everything that I think we need. And then we'll improve it the next year and improve it the next year, because that's what I think this will be. Okay, so, Steve says, I would say be careful with taxes. The feds work off your gross earnings and put you. Oh, yes. There are several things. That's why I talked about it for a whole hour previously. You could put yourself, if you listen to me too much, you could win so much, you could go up in your tax bracket. And so what the thing I've encouraged is, if you're changing how you're gambling so much, thanks, John, I'm winning so much. Be careful, because there's whole new tax brackets, all these different changes that can happen. And as long as you have an idea what's coming, then you should be fine. I won $185,000 cycling bankrolls in the last 6 weeks of 2013. And I thought, if I'd been doing that the whole year, it would have been millions. I wonder what my taxes would have looked like. So I slowed down the next year and kind of waited till April to see how much damage did I do. So changing your income significantly is something to be careful of. Okay, thank you for that feedback. Thank you, Chuck, for your comment. Good way to go. Whose casinos gets upset if you take notes? All of them. But if you do it on an electronic device, in some states, that's a felony. In a physical book, you're using an electronic gambling device for who knows what, and it's a felony in Nevada and some other states. But if you use a physical booklet, they'll just ask you to stop. So I no way, I don't want one of you to get a felony. So yeah, I'm trying to find a way, weave my way through this that is best for you. And as much as I love the idea of everybody talking about an app, no way I want anybody to get in trouble. So we will see if that actually pushes forward. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, thanks. Jan put the podcast in her phone as a reminder. Oh yeah, did you see my pillow? I got in the shirt. Slots. I'm a slots enthusiast. Some of my stuff that I've been ordering has started to arrive. Jan mentioned she likes the pillow. She has just one just like it in orange. Thank you, Larry. Larry says, interesting show today. Lots of it doesn't affect you. Yes, I can imagine. You should tell me sometime what UK taxes are like. I almost got my first job there, and I was like scratching my head as I went off to the next job offer. Okay, so and good show, great show. Everybody's saying so. Thank you so much, everybody, and you guys have fun, be safe, make good choices. Bye. Remember to visit ProfessorSlots.com/subscribe to get my free report revealing the top 7 online resources for improving your gambling performance, including the one I've used as a top-tier slot machine casino gambler. This is the second segment of the show on slot machine casino gambling. Here I provide a brief overview of the current state of gambling in a U.S. state, territory, or the federal district, emphasizing by far anything of interest to slot machine casino gamblers. Next up is Ohio slot machine casino gambling in 2020. Here goes. Ohio slot machine casino gambling consists of 11 casinos. 4 are standalone casinos with table games, while 7 casinos are pari-mutuel racinos with horse tracks and simulcast betting. Ohio casinos have a minimum theoretical payout limit. Return statistics are publicly available. The minimum legal gambling age in Ohio depends upon the gambling activity. For land-based casinos and poker rooms, it's 21. For bingo, the lottery, and pari-mutuel wagering, it's 18. In 1933, an approved constitutional amendment legalized pari-mutuel wagering at racetracks. The 1970s saw the arrival of the lottery and charitable bingo. Social poker games have always existed, but the house must not profit from the game. The original operators of Ohio's 4 standalone casinos backed a proposed constitutional amendment. In November 2009, 52% of voters approved the constitutional amendment, allowing 1 casino in each of the cities of Cincinnati, Cleveland, Columbus, and Toledo. In addition to the usual fees and taxes imposed on Ohio businesses, the constitutional amendment required or specified a 33% tax on gross casino revenue, a distribution of the proceeds of the tax, a license fee of $50 million per casino dedicated to workforce development, an initial capital investment of $250 million for the development of each casino facility, the existence of the Ohio Casino Control Commission, and the Ohio General Assembly would pass other laws to facilitate the operation of the Casino Gaming Amendment, including a maximum of 5,000 slot machines at each casino facility, and that there would be no limit on the number of table games allowed. Subsequent changes in state lottery legislation allowed pari-mutuel racetracks to begin to offer video lottery terminal, VLT, style slot machines in 2012. These were the first racinos in Ohio. Next up is a usually short statement about slot machine private ownership, which I have included in case you live in this U.S. state and are considering owning a slot machine. Here it is. In Ohio, it is legal to own a slot machine privately without restriction as to its date of manufacture. In 2009, a constitutional amendment created the Ohio Casino Control Commission. Its website is comprehensive, but only applies to slot machine casino gambling at Ohio's 4 standalone casinos. In 1973, a constitutional amendment established the Ohio Lottery Commission. The Ohio Lottery eventually became responsible for and controls video slot machines found at Ohio's 7 racinos. These pari-mutuel racetracks began adding VLT-style slot machines in 2012. The State Gaming Commission offers significant resources for slots enthusiasts besides return statistics. For instance, enforcement provides quarterly and fiscal year gaming crimes and statistics, including offenses by statute. In this section, I discuss Ohio gambling establishments. There are 4 commercial casino resorts and 7 commercial pari-mutuel racetracks with simulcast betting, as well as slot machines, in Ohio. The largest casino in Ohio is Eldorado Gaming Scioto Downs, with 2,386 gaming machines in February 2020. The second largest casino is MGM Northfield Park, with 2,183 gaming machines in February 2020. The 4 casino resorts and 7 pari-mutuel racetracks with VLT-style slot machines in Ohio are, as usual, too many casinos to mention here. A complete list and state map with all casinos marked is on my webpage for this state at ProfessorSlots.com/OH. Ohio has no tribal casinos, as no federally recognized American Indian tribes exist in this state. As an alternative to enjoying Ohio slot machine casino gambling, consider exploring casino options in a nearby state. Bordering Ohio is to the north, Michigan and Lake Erie, to the east, Pennsylvania, to the southeast, West Virginia, to the south, Kentucky, and to the west, Indiana. To visit any of my articles on these U.S. states, simply visit ProfessorSlots.com, followed by its two-letter postal designation. For example, my Michigan Slots article is available at ProfessorSlots.com/mi. Are you interested in sharing and learning with other slots enthusiasts in Ohio? If so, join our Ohio Slots community on Facebook at ProfessorSlots.com/FBOH. All you'll need is a Facebook profile to join this private Facebook group freely. There, you'll be able to privately share your slots experiences as well as chat with players about slots gambling in or near Ohio. Again, use this convenient link I've created to go directly to our group on Facebook, ProfessorSlots.com/FBOH. Join us. Ohio's Gaming Control Act Section 3772.20 states that the minimum theoretical payout is 85% for slot machines at Ohio's casino resorts. The same payoff limit applies to slot machines at Ohio's racetracks with slot machines thanks to the Ohio Lottery's video lottery game rules. Ohio's 5 standalone casino resorts have return statistics publicly available from the Ohio Gaming Commission. However, Ohio's 7 racetracks with slot machines have their return statistics available from the Ohio Lottery. Both sources offer return statistics by month, casino, and statewide. In February 2020, monthly casino revenue reports from the Ohio Gaming Commission shows return statistics for the 4 casino resorts. The highest return for casino resorts went to Jack Cleveland at 92.3%, while the lowest went to Hollywood Toledo at 91%. The statewide average is 91.8%. In February 2020, VLT fiscal revenue reports from the Ohio Lottery shows return statistics for the 7 racinos. The highest return for racinos went to Miami Valley Gaming at 91.3%, while the lowest went to Hollywood Mahoning Valley at 90.2%. Overall, Jack Cleveland had the best return of any casino or racino in Ohio, while Hollywood Mahoning Valley had the lowest. The statewide average is 90.8%, a full percentage point less than the statewide average for the 4 casino resorts. In summary, Ohio slot machine casino gambling consists of 11 casinos operating under 2 gaming commissions. These casinos include 4 standalone casino resorts regulated by the Ohio Gaming Commission and 7 racinos with pari-mutuel wagering and VLT-style slot machines regulated and controlled by the Ohio Lottery. The minimum theoretical payout limit at all Ohio casinos is 85%. Each gaming control board offers monthly return statistics which are publicly available. In the last year, Jack Cincinnati has officially switched ownership to Hard Rock Cincinnati. Further, in Cincinnati over the last year, Boyd Gaming operates Belterra Park after this racino's purchase in late 2018. Remember to visit ProfessorSlots.com/subscribe to get my free report revealing the top 7 online resources for improving your gambling performance, including the one I've used as a top-tier slot machine casino gambler. Part 1 of the next episode of the Professor Slots podcast is a live stream Q&A session on YouTube. Remember, my weekly Q&A session on YouTube is on Saturdays from noon until 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Bring whatever slots questions you have and I'll do my best to answer them. An easy-to-remember link to my YouTube channel is ProfessorSlots.com/live. Feel free to stop by anytime during my hour-long Q&A. To suggest a topic or ask a question which might end up as a blog article or a podcast episode, email it to john@ProfessorSlots.com, where John is spelled Jon. Part 2 of the next episode of the Professor Slots podcast is another brief overview of the current state of gambling in a U.S. state, territory, or the federal district. Next time, I'll be talking to you about the great U.S. state of Oklahoma. That's the end of another great episode of the Professor Slots podcast. Thanks so much for listening. Show notes for this episode are on my website at ProfessorSlots.com/episode 96. I plan to have the next episode come out very soon for you, where I'll have more amazing content for the show. Until the next episode, have fun, be safe, and make good choices. Bye.